Hello and welcome to the Exponential Potential Podcast, helping you thrive in times of change, with your hosts Claire Oatway and Jennifer Evans, aka Zen Jen, along with expert guests sharing with you uplifting, inspiring and insightful stories, groundbreaking, rule-shaking ideas, fresh, new, exciting perspective, and truly transformational tools and top tips, as well as generous gifts for you, our listeners, on an array of topics, all designed to help you thrive in all areas of life. So sit back and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome everybody to another amazing Exponential Potential podcast. And today I have one of my favorite jobs, which is to host and interview my other co-host, Claire Oatway. Welcome, Claire. It's so wonderful to see you.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Playful as ever.
Yes, excellent. I love your shirt, by the way. I love the playfulness of your shirt. Yeah. So Claire is an expert leadership and strategy coach for businesses, especially female leaders. And today we are talking about business strategies on how you can supercharge your creativity and get things done in the workplace. Yeah. So this is going to be good, and it's lovely to sort of take a step on from the previous episode, which is all about creativity and self-worth. So it's a really nice link. And also this month is around abundance, and creativity just fits in so well with that. So
yeah,
and I'm excited.
You know, some of the tips that we've got coming forward, just as a prelude, are around how you can create abundance around you using creativity. How, if you're in a job and you're feeling stuck, how you can use creativity to fall in love and be productive and get spotted, get promoted. Or if you're running your own business, how you can use creativity to adapt your strategy and your approaches. But at its core, some really key bits about creativity that make a huge difference in the workplace.
Yes, yeah, and a couple of the other topics is, how we become quite forgetful around creative, how to play. We forget how to play because we're all so serious all the time. So we're going to talk about that. Claire's also going to touch on the psychological safety and play ways you can boost that sense of security, that sense of safety, that trusting environment. And if we have time, we're going to dive into the diversity to creative Bono's thinking.
Bono, he's one of my absolute favourites.
Right, so we're definitely going to get to that. And then looking outside your normal industry for playful, creative ideas. So we'll dive right in. And Claire, what would you say about high achievers, and who notices that they're a high achiever, and what do they forget to do, or what do they focus on instead?
Well, I spend a lot of time looking at saboteur behaviours and through the framework of positive intelligence, and very often those people that lead businesses, they are high achievers. So I'm in that. I've got the MBA, I've got the BA, I've got the fellow in this, I've got the fellow in that. So I'm kind of collecting all of these accolades, which is fantastic, and it feeds into my work. But I'm quite driven in that. Now, what people don't realise is that I'm driven because that's my way of showing that I'm worth something, is if I have the badge. But within many corporate environments, there's that authority that comes with, well, you've got that badge, so you must be good, you've got that badge. So we get caught on this hamster wheel of achievement to demonstrate our worth, and just through that busyness and industriousness, we get caught in a bit of a rut. Very productive ruts and very successful ruts, but we do get caught. And similarly, in that category, I put people who perhaps use a lot of logic within their work environment. So kind of finance or technology or operations, engineering. It's like almost this mechanistic, if I do this, then this will happen. If I do this, then this will happen. And in both of those worlds, they're quite hard, quite direct, quite hard, quite forceful, quite get it done, have an impact, turn the profit. And I think that squeezes out creativity in many workplaces, in fact most workplaces, which is really sad.
And do you think so? That's one. Is that one of the ways we lose creativity? Is we get caught up in the dots and the art, the detail and the logistics and being logical and, as you say, getting it done.
Yeah, well, sometimes creativity and play. I mean, play can be a really dirty word in work because it evokes a sense of not taking work seriously, not taking business seriously, and and children play, adults don't play.
Yes.
And we kind of just we minimize it all of the time.
And there's also that belief system that I know I grew up with, I'm sure you did, of if you want if you want to be successful in your business or in your career, you have to work hard.
Yeah.
So that's ingrained, isn't it? That work hard ethic. So I can totally understand why play is, a dirty word in the business. And I can totally relate to that.
Work hard, negotiate hard. You have to follow the rules. You have to set the rules. It's quite there's not much space for free flow, and sometimes as well, creativity is seen as a bit of an indulgent exercise because it kind of doesn't always have that productive. If I spend 20 minutes meditating, I will have done this. It's like, no, actually, that time supports your longer term goal as well as your immediate goal. Just let go. We don't have to be on in the sense of visibly working and producing and being caught in meetings the whole time. And so it gets squashed out. But and also on top of that, one of the things you may or may not have realized, but I spend a lot of time in this world, in the 90s, there was a real focus in management and strategy and business literature on performance scorecards. And again, these brought in many more mechanistic approaches. So lean manufacturing, a lot of these terms were starting to come through that gave us a sense of control over our environment, because you can see what's happening, you can adjust it, you can make, again, it keeps reinforcing this mechanistic style. But the outside world is not like that. People are not like that. So to bring more collaboration and creativity in will help any business to thrive, any team to thrive in a way that's absolutely necessary alongside the scorecards.
Yeah, I remember ISO 9 blah, 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 coming in, and oh my God, was that boring and tedious? But it was literally, wasn't it, a manual of how you had to run your business and all these systems, and there was no room for any creativity there. It was all very, very logical, and this is what happens next, and this is what happens next. So what other benefits are there of creativity? So you talk about it creates more flow. And what other benefits can you share around that?
So creativity brings success. Studies have explored the role of creativity. So Adobe led a study on creativity and found that those businesses that engaged in creative practice were 1.5 times more successful than the normal business. In terms of creativity, there are different approaches to strategy. I'll try not to go deep in strategy, but there's one called Blue Ocean strategy, and the idea is that there are always new opportunities. And so rather than fighting and competing in a in an ocean full of sharks, which is a red ocean, you go and find your own stretch of ocean, because the ocean is vast and wide, and you can create a new market, you can create new ideas. But it means a certain level of bravery to be able to find those new opportunities, those new markets, those new ways of producing. I think the other impacts that it has is it can reduce stress quite quickly, and it can create a team cohesion quite quickly if you can engage in creative practices. If you can create that sense of play, it can bring joy into the workplace. And I've led many people in the past, and sometimes those structures can suck out the joy of people.
Yeah, I remember.
So you want to bring it back in, because you want people to thrive. When they thrive in a workplace, they bring their ideas, they bring their commitment and their loyalty, they bring their passion, and that leads to success. So kind of right away from the individual level up to the macro level for businesses, creativity is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, I think, and you look at a lot of companies that have that creativity, and you look at their success, and you also look at the amount of people that want to work for them.
Yeah. Well, look at Google, for example. The amount of time that they deliberately set aside that allows people to explore different interests, different industries, different skills, and all of this comes, if you can create the right balance in that, all of that activity comes in to serve the business. It serves the needs of the teams as well. So there's a definite. We talk a lot around energy, and it's surprising how much that comes through in language. But there is a real vibrancy around those businesses that are creative in their approach.
Yeah, I mean, I remember even back in the 90s, I was on a jolly, if you like, I used to work in the tech industry in sales, and I went to Silicon Valley, and it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And they had squash courts and tennis courts and areas where, specific creative areas. And it was just unbelievable. It was incredible. So, yeah, and you could feel, I could certainly feel that energy of, happiness and joy.
Well, whereas here in the UK, I think we're still stuck in the workhouses of the Victorian era. There we go.
Yes, indeed. Although we're getting there. Yes. So how can you? So you talk about creativity, but how can you, as an individual or in the workplace or as a company, boost the creativity of your employees in your teams?
So I think I'm a fan of an away day or an away session, and an allotted amount of time where there is a set purpose, but actually you release the reins, you kind of create a space for people to play with ideas. I know that many people hate icebreakers with a passion. They're so cynical about them. But I do think that they are a way of bringing in connection. And I think there are some icebreakers that I use when I teach executives that just start to expand possibilities. So I'll give you an example. It's a silly word game, and I'd say, right, here's 2 words. I want you to create as many different product ideas or service ideas as you can within 15 minutes. And the aim of the game is to come up with as many as you possibly can. So what we would call brainstorming, although can't anymore, but to create that space. And the noise levels go through the roof. The words that I give them are marshmallow and motorbike. So deliberately silly ideas, and I was like, right, just have a play with this concept. And I've had everything from motorbike tools around campfires where you're burning marshmallows, to kind of a marshmallow shaped like a motorbike to leather spray that smells like marshmallows. But
Oh, yum.
it's fascinating to see kind of the breadth of people's ideas, and they're bringing in examples from their own world as well as creating new ones and building on each other's. So if somebody comes up with this idea of a marshmallow spray on leather, it's like, well, why don't we take the filling of marshmallow and put that in the seats? So that, we're creating these marshmallow soft seats on motorbikes, and you can feel it going through, but the energy is really, really high. And it covers some mechanical ideas, some kind of really deep adventure ideas, and when you have no rules, you have this abundance of possibilities that then you can start to contain again. So using aspects like that are helpful. I think in terms of encouraging people to explore beyond the boundaries of their team, even internally, to find out what other people do and to start to examine how their work could influence their own. Looking at other businesses or even looking at in other industries. So you could, I'm a prolific reader. I love reading and I love experimenting with tech. And I would read when I was working and running a healthcare business, I would read around technology business. And be like, okay, I wonder what would happen if we brought that into here. And I wonder, and what does that look like? And and I think that perhaps another way that you can bring in play is in terms of some of your references that you pull through. So a great book that I recommend is called Be More Pirate. And I know, it's just making
writing that one down
straight away. So Be More Pirate it's written by Sam Conniff, and it led me to be in a room called the Sales Pirates for some time, co-hosting on Clubhouse. But the idea is that the pirates of old had really good structure. They were really agile. They had a sense of camaraderie. They actually were pro women as kind of leaders and captains on boats. They were very democratic. So if if you didn't agree with the chief pirate, you'd have them overboard. But they'd spread messages. They'd kind of build up folklore about what they were doing and where they were going. And kind of many of these aspects made them very successful in what they did, although depends which side of history you're on. But it made them really successful in terms of their team approach and achieving their intended outcomes. But again, using references like that, I was like, okay, it gives permission to be playful, to explore, bring different aspects in.
And it also reminds me of lots of pirate jokes. I'm not going to do here because they're just too dire, but they always make me laugh.
Well, pirates, why are pirates so funny? Because they are.
Exactly.
Yeah. So some of those aspects, and I think as well, another way that you can bring in more capacity, not necessarily just for play, but around how you apply rules. Very often you can have a set process, and that's the way that it happens. And I've always preferred to, whenever I can, to create parameters rather than prescriptive rules, because when you can create parameters, people will find their own way through. You give them permission to solve problems in a completely different way than they would normally, or based on different encounters they have with customers, for example, or based on their strengths. So when you can create those parameters and just create the freedom, and people experiment and they trial and come back and explore what's worked or what's not worked, and then learn and then grow from there. It's a really sustainable way to empower people and to nurture more success in your teams.
Yes, definitely. And I'm thinking that you need to have a safe, trusting environment to do that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So there's increasing talk around psychological safety in the
Mm-hmm.
workplace. And for many people who are under a lot of stress, or perhaps have a controlling boss, you spend a lot of time in fear at work.
Yes. Yeah, I
And you look at some
experienced
environments,
that.
having worked within healthcare, the amount of scarcity and fear that is in there is,
Mm-hmm.
it's a very difficult working environment. And that can lead to errors, it can lead to burnout, it can lead to high turnover without you realizing. And if you look more broadly, where you've got mass redundancies coming through, similarly, that kind of news brings more fear into the workplace, because
Mm-hmm.
people don't want to lose their jobs. And so, there's many workplaces nowadays have this sense of, you need to obey, you need to deliver, you need to be driven to achieve this for survival, which, don't get me wrong, is important, but actually you need to create a sense of safety that people can try new ideas, or challenge how you've done things in the past, or challenge unethical behavior, or
Mm-hmm.
challenge poor behavior among peers, in order to it's their way of investing in the workplace and helping it to grow, as opposed to being a resource that's used, seeing yourself as part of a bigger team, as part of a bigger resource. And so, psychological safety is critical in terms of performance within so many businesses, but
Mm-hmm.
you have to be intentional in creating the environment.
And that comes from the leadership aspect, doesn't it? That's top down, or is that something that other employees can start to sort of activate to
Well, you
take
can
action
actually,
on?
yeah. For me, my definition of a leader is very rarely attached to the title that you're given at work.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody can lead, and you can create that sense of safety within your own local environment. So you can say, for example, in an interaction, here's my idea, but I'd love to have your feedback, or how you give feedback of, I've noticed this happens and the impact is that, what could we change? So
Mm-hmm.
it's starting to look for solutions, and trying to invite feedback without judgment necessarily.
Yeah, I think that might be a different episode as well, in terms of, that's really empowerment and courage, and knowing your rights and responsibilities and all that sort of thing around. That would be, I think, a really interesting episode to have, as to how you voice and express yourself when you have a controlling force above you, kind of. Yeah.
And I think there are so many parallels that you can pull through in terms of play. So if you look at failure, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if you see children at play, they don't, and they're building bricks and the bricks fall, kind of, you get that emotional reaction, but they start building again. It's
Yes,
like, okay.
yes. It's yeah.
It's like, God, there's more resilience in there. Whereas within a workplace, and again, working within healthcare, if there are any errors or failures, you need to investigate, and sometimes it can lead to, well, you've done that wrong, and that's a safety issue. Whereas you're not really starting to understand what might have gone wrong, or if it's something within the environment, or you're not curious about what's happened. And sometimes you can invest too much in saying you're wrong, as opposed to, how do we make this right? How do we learn? How do we keep going? So to return to building again.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you might throw your toys out of your pram for a minute.
Well,
and children aren't frightened of fear, are they? They're just, oh, it didn't work. Let's try it again. Let's try it a different way this time, or let's do it a bit slower, or take my time, or
Yeah, and other ways that business can bring in psychological safety is around leadership training. So investing in leadership training, and in diversity, to encourage a range of voices around the table, to encourage a culture that recognises the value that everybody brings and encourages that to come forward. Also, creating whistleblowing protocols, and these are core solid approaches to management, but are often missed. So providing an avenue that if someone has got a concern or a gripe, they're able to escalate that before it goes too far to somebody else within the organization. And I think in many businesses, people don't feel safe to do that, and so they change environment completely. So businesses lose talented people because of it. And it's so easy to shrug off and go, well, it's just how we are here. We always will be, unless somebody starts making a change. Yeah.
So I'm very interested to know so you're talking about diversity. So what is create de Bono's thinking? Create de Bono's thinking hats.
Well, I'm offering that as my free gift, and it's one that it's a really straightforward tool, and I'll oversimplify it. But de Bono was a psychologist and identified that we each there are 6 different styles of thinking that come through. So you might, and used hats as a metaphor to help it come alive. So you might have a black hat, for example. If you're somebody with a black hat, you will find the problem. You'll moan about it, or you'll be like, oh no, that's not going to work because of this reason and this, or we've tried this. So quite focused on the problem, often seen as argumentative or awkward, difficult, reluctant to change, kind of really quite negative connotations attached to a black hat. But actually, somebody who would wear that black hat is really good at spotting where plans might fail in advance. So then you can resolve that problem. They are perhaps picking up on gossip or rumor or speculation about what might be going wrong early on, and they'll bring it to the table, not to make it fail, but if you don't listen to what's being brought through, you will make sure it fails. Very often they're good at spotting challenges that other people, whether they be consumers, whether they be investors, whether they be other stakeholders, what challenges they might bring by listening to them. So de Bono suggested that there were these 6 different hats. There's a white hat that's quite purist and focused on kind of big abstract thinking. There's a green hat in terms of creativity. There's a range of hats that are brought through, and you can do this as a fun activity with a team to say, well, what hat are you? There's a few assessments you can do online, but you can also role play. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a solopreneur, you can force yourself or pretend to be a black hat and find all the things wrong, and then be a yellow hat, and then work that through. How will people react? And it's a really good way to build up the quality of an idea, the quality of a product or a service. Very often, especially when we're achievers, when we're getting things done, we get things done and we succeed because we've learnt the patterns on how to do things quickly. So it's fast. You can do that. I know all these things. Go, 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 go. Which will help you reach a certain level of success. But it means that you can be blindsided. You can be quite narrow in your thinking. So exercises like de Bono can encourage you to take different steps. And within NLP, for example, and I've seen this with some clients as well, it doesn't have to be a hat. It could be a person. You could consider an imaginative or creative person. So if I said a creative person, who would spring to mind for you?
Laurie.
But anybody, well, for people that don't know Laurie, across time or space.
Oh, right. Sorry. In the my mind's gone completely blank. It's gone completely blank. But Steve, I mean, it's past. But Steve Jobs is, you know, was a creative.
Yep. Yep. So, we can play with Steve Jobs and imagine that Steve Jobs is a member of our team or is a member of our board, you know, in our business or in our, you know, in the workplace. How would Steve Jobs solve this problem? And kind of just role play into that, and, you know, observe Steve in his suit and all of his success, you know, what he's achieved and some of the ideas and the approaches that he takes, and, you know, step into Steve. What does Steve do? Just play a bit of dress up. The person that sprung to mind for me was Lady Gaga. And I'm thinking I might spend most of today as Lady Gaga.
She's way more fun.
She's more fun. Yeah, and why not? You know, why not bring through some of that energy, some of that style, and to play? And it doesn't make me, it doesn't make me less of a person that I'm not Lady Gaga. I'm me. That's fine. But actually, I can use some of Lady Gaga's work. I can use some of the energy and that approach. And, you know, Claire with Lady Gaga, that's freaking unstoppable, surely.
Absolutely. Yes. No. So you're looking outside of using other people that inspire you potentially, or that are creative, and asking that question: how would they do it?
Yeah. And, you know, some of the most
how would they be? How would they be? What, you know, how would they be in terms of their approach? Yeah.
Well, and some of the most successful people are really avid readers. So Warren Buffett reads, you know, hours a day. Elon Musk does as well, and he credits a lot of his success to avid reading. And you know, if you love reading stories, if you love reading biographies, it's a way to start to understand a character and what a character brings. And in so doing, you can role play with that idea. It's like, well, you give permission for that to come into the space and, you know, augment what you're doing. Wear it as a dress to make what you're producing even better every time.
Yes, and also those people, or certainly still have people that they collaborate with, people that help them. You know, they don't do it alone, even though they're top of their game. They still have a team around them that's supporting them and helping them, you know, come together and create and have different ideas that they wouldn't have had.
Absolutely. And another reason why diversity is so important. Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of my favorite quotes of his, is, you know, he rejects being called the self-made man. He's like, you've got it all wrong if you think that I have made me.
By myself.
All of my physical trainers have, all of my voice coaches have, all of my nutritionists have, all of these people are behind me that gives me this force. And similarly, you know, you can't. The more open you are to those different elements, the better the output, the outcome becomes. You know, over time, for sure.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So yes, you're obviously clearly passionate about that, and I love it because it's diverse, it's different, it's creative. So you said that this is a free gift that you're offering our listeners.
Yes. So it's a straightforward kind of introduction in more depth to Bono and how you can use it, and a couple of frameworks. A link to some free assessments. I'm
awesome.
I'm very happy to steal other people's content. If they've created the quizzes, then we'll use their quizzes. It's just just look around them and draw inspiration from elsewhere. So there's some assessments in there, and then just a practical couple of questions to make you go through the exercise and see how it runs. And I'll include the instructions for the marshmallow motorbike exercise. So I'd love to hear, perhaps in the chat with YouTube, what people have done with that one.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you. So you'll find all Claire's links in the description below. And is there anything else before we say sign off? Is there anything else you want to add, Claire?
Well, the only other thing that I would add is just how important these aspects of creativity are in terms of pauses throughout work life. And I actually work with there's a company called Work Trip that help corporate teams to organise away days or different sessions, and you can access me through Neon Juno or Work Trip have a great way of helping you to design a retreat in order to get this going. And I think I'd really encourage people to start to consider that and to get in touch if you think if you're noticing that your team is stuck and you want to create bring in a joker like me to create a playful but productive environment for a couple of hours, and just to really turbocharge how you're working together.
And I think it's so important to get away from your norm, to shift that energy from the your office or your working home working environment, as a lot of people do now. It's really important to create new ideas, to be in a new space and to reset.
And
absolutely.
Very often we might try and trim costs and run the exercise yourself, which is great because it reinforces your leadership. But one of the things that I've found when I've done that is you're then not allowed to engage because you're too busy trying to facilitate it and make sure it works and direct it. And so it really isn't a false economy to bring in somebody else from outside. And it'd be great if it's me, but it doesn't have to be me. Just give yourself the best possible chance, the best possible return on the time by being guided through that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Claire. And I'm sure our listeners really gleaned a lot from that. Love to hear your comments. Please like, share and subscribe. And if you do know somebody, share specifically to them, but we'd love you to share it in general as well. So thank you, and until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. We'd love to hear your comments and feedback, and if you've enjoyed it, please click on that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and feel free to share. Join us for our next episode of the Exponential Potential Podcast. Ignite your potential and thrive in times of great change.